All right, welcome back to Give History with Joe Giorlando. In today's video, I'm going to be playing against Sean Montague. We are going to be playing the 2007 Troop Dupe format. I have elected to run a Perfect Circle variant. This is not a deck I've profiled yet, but it's a deck based on Monarchs with Destiny Heroes, essentially trying to special summon Malicious or Disc Commander as much as possible, and then subsequently tribute those monsters from Monarchs like Ryza. To the best of my knowledge, Sean is going to be playing a Gadget-Monarch deck, so he's essentially going to try and gain card advantage through the various gadgets, and then utilize those gadgets with Monarchs to incrementally build up card advantage as the game progresses. So chances are he's going to start here turn 1 with a gadget. Unfortunately, my deck with Trap Dust Shoot has a little bit of a weakness here. I basically need him to have a gadget I need him to have a Monarch in hand. If I Trap Dust Shoot and he only has gadgets, that can be really unfortunate. So yep, that's fine. I don't obviously have any hand traps to stop it. Green searches, it's the reverse. Yellow, right? Nope, red. Okay, it's the reverse of a stoplight. So green searches red. Red searches yellow, yellow searches green. That will be pivotal here. I technically have 2 copies of Mystic Tomato in my deck. It would be really nice to draw a copy of Mystic Tomato because I could crash, obviously, into his green gadget. So let's see what we draw. There's a lot of good cards I can draw. It's not the absolute worst draw. It's actually pretty decent, all things considered. So he's at 2 back rows. In this format, I could, in theory, encounter a Trap Dust Shoot. Trap Dust Shoot would be worst case scenario, so I'm not really going to consider playing Brain Control on the green gadget, because if you were to chain Trap Dust Shoot, I'd basically just lose the game right there, and I don't want that to happen. Ultimately, what I think the most ideal play here is to set my Trap Dust Shoot and Mind Crush and let the game progress a little bit. That way I can get a look at his hand and then decide if I really want to go Ryza plus Brain Control on something. It would also make it so that I could Heavy Storm on the following turn, risk the Dust Shoot. I at least 1-for-1 if he has Dust Shoot. But then I'd be able to brain one gadget and tribute it for Ryza and Ryza the other gadget, which would set him back quite a bit. So I think I'm actually going to set both of my trap cards, take a look at his hand, and then decide on the next turn what the best course of action is. I am, in fact, going to risk him having a hand with multiple gadgets here by using Trap Dust Shoot. Yeah, sweet. This is actually really great. Perfect. I can take this to Stalos, which I think is easily the best card. Yeah, game breaking. In the chat, he says game breaking. I know the chat's covered up on your side, but he just said game breaking in the chat. So he has Mirror Force. That gives us some interesting information. I'll try and talk about what that might mean. He has Red Gadget, 2 Spies, and Stalos. I think Stalos is by far the take here. I don't really want to risk, and I have the Mind Crush for double Spy, which is incredible too. I'm going to take his Stalos. I have the option here of using the Mind Crush on the Spies, but I'm actually not going to do that, which might sound weird. I think there is the possibility that I might be able to Ryza the Spy and then Mind Crush the following turn and hit both of the Spies from his hand. So we'll see what he ends up doing. I also have the option here of getting rid of his gadget, but I personally typically let my opponent kind of just do their gadget thing. My monsters have more attack. I have the Ryza here. It's a possibility. Yeah. Okay, this is sweet. So now what I'll be able to do, and this is going to work out really great. This was the other possibility. I just didn't get a chance to talk about it. I'm going to be able to Heavy Storm, hit his Spies, and then Ryza a gadget on top of his deck, and then that'll put me in a really good position. So he's going to search Yellow Gadget. I'll take, what's this, 2,700. Whether or not he sets Mirror Force here will be pretty interesting. All right, sweet. So we'll see what I draw. Oh, Tomato, that's a fantastic draw. Wow. So if I play Heavy Storm here and he has Trap Dust Shoot, I'm still in a fine position because I'll be able to crash the Tomato into his green gadget and then end with Sangan. I could even attack his red gadget if I wanted to immediately search for a Destiny draw target, but I don't think that's necessary. I think the most ideal play here is to actually use my Heavy Storm and see what he does, because then I can choose from that point if I want to Ryza or Mystic Tomato. So I think that's the best play. I can also use the Mind Crush on the double Spy, because I know he has 2 Spy, Yellow Gadget, and Mirror Force in his hand. And what that's also going to let me do is if I hold off the Ryza till the following turn, I can Ryza the Mirror Force, which is also pretty good. So I am going to activate Heavy Storm here. If he dash shoots, I have... All right, good. So we're going to call Spy. Hit his double Spy. So Torrential and Sakuratsu armor. Sweet. Now we're going to crash into his green gadget. So I have a couple options here. I can get Treebone Frog immediately. I don't think that's a good choice. I can get Sangan. I think Sangan's the best one because it puts him into a bad position. He has two options. Attack the Sangan and let me search a Destiny draw target like Destiny Hero Malicious, or let it sit there and let me tribute it for Ryza. I could search Mystic Tomato, but I think Mystic Tomato is actually the worst option. Yes, I'd be able to attack over his gadget, but at the same time, he also has the ability to shift the red gadget to defense mode, and the next thing you know, he's walling me, and that's not good at all. So I don't want that at all. I'm going to get the Sangan. Now it works with my Ryza, Destiny Draw, no matter what. So right now he has Yellow Gadget and Mirror Force in hand. Worst case scenario, he draws a card. Wish I could have read them. Mind Crush, yeah. Possibly. It's tough. The card's limited to one. In the chat, he just said he wished he could have read the Mind Crush. Yep, so we knew he had that Yellow Gadget. Awesome. So he's going to search the green gadget now. So looking back at Adam's deck, his deck is based on Adam Korn's deck from the Shonen Jump in Houston. I don't know if it's an exact carbon copy, but it has some interesting card choices, double Spy, double Jujutsu Master, so we have to be very wary about set monsters from this point. From his perspective, he's probably going to attack for 25. He needs to try and just end the game as quick as possible. He's going to fall behind because of the Trap Dash Shoot and the Mind Crush. I'm confused here. Okay, sure. So he drew green gadget? Okay. That is the downfall of the gadget deck, is when you end up drawing multiple gadgets outside of the iteration. So I'll try my best not to play like I know that, but I guess he summoned the green gadget, so I just explicitly know that no matter what. So he has a red gadget and a yellow gadget now, and then Mirror Force. So he's going to attack for 1700 here, I assume. Yeah, 1700. I think here I have to search a copy of Malicious. The worst case scenario is I de-draw into double Malicious, but let's assume that's not going to happen. I could technically also search Mystic Tomato and then try to crash, but he has the Mirror Force. That's bad. Malicious is the best card by a long shot. This is really what the deck's going to try and do, which is start the turn with no monsters, but then be able to actually special summon a Destiny Hero and then subsequently a Monarch. So we're going to go Destiny Draw into Malicious. Oh, here's my cat coming to say hello. All right. Confiscation's not super useful right now. That is super useful, though. We're going to banish the Malicious first. You would always banish the Malicious when you have other draw cards because you don't want to draw, obviously, into another copy of Destiny Hero Malicious. Now, I'm not going to tribute and then banish for the third Malicious because I don't know what going forward I'm going to want to do. I might need to leave that in the graveyard. Oh, that Wing Blast is great. That Wing Blast is great. So this is really what the deck tries to do, which is loop Wing Blast with some of the other cards, with like Ryza. Because now what's going to happen is he has two dead gadgets in hand. I'm going to be able to attack over... We're going to attack over the red gadget. It deals more damage, but in addition to that, the defense is actually a big deal. I could theoretically draw Tomato and crash if he leaves this in attack, which he's probably not going to do, but there's also a ton more monsters, like even my Malicious from the graveyard, that can attack over this. So going into main phase 2, I'm just going to set the Wing Blast. I have a couple good cards in my hand to discard. The game's not over. I only really have one more iteration of this. Eventually that Mirror Force is going to be a good card for him. But nevertheless, I'm in a decent spot right now. I'm drawing to a lot of live cards. So we'll see what ends up happening here. I do have to be worried about my life points. He could very easily steal this game. Looking at it, his deck actually has 3 copies of Brain Control. Now, we know he just drew Mirror Force, so there's no concern about that. But it is something to note that if he gets a fresh draw step, but he's not going to get for a couple more turns from here. That could cause us a little bit of concern. But he just summoned yellow, so now he has red, so now he has 2 copies of yellow in hand, if I recall correctly. Now I know this is Mirror Force because he just has 2 copies of yellow, so there's no point in utilizing my face down Wing Blast yet. See what I draw. All right, I'm actually doing an interesting play this turn. We're going to go to main phase 1. One thing to consider with this deck is with Wing Blast, you could theoretically draw Treeborn Frog, bounce a card, and then in standby phase, bring back the Treeborn Frog if you wanted. Obviously, that wasn't the case here, but it is something to consider. I don't want to lose life points right now, and if I use my Card Trooper in mill 3, bringing it up to 19, yes, I'd be able to attack over both monsters, but I would then leave a Card Trooper for him to attack over himself, and I'm at a point of the game where I'm afraid of my life total and losing to a card like Brain Control. What I'm actually going to do is summon Card Trooper, and I'm going to use its effect only twice. That way it goes up to exactly a 1400. Oh, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Well, mill 2. What I'll be able to do now is crash my Card Trooper into his green gadget, getting them both off the board and replacing it, and then attacking over his red gadget. That way I'll be able to get the Card Trooper off the board, still get a draw, clear his field, and put myself into a good position. I think the card in my hand that has the least utility is this Confiscation. I wanted to see what I milled first before I committed to this play, but I don't want to pay 1,000 life points. I know his hand is literally 2 gadgets, so I think that was the best. I'm going to crash the green gadget again like I alluded to avoid life point damage and to draw a card. Sweet. That's going to let us bounce his Mirror Force one more time. We'll now attack over his red gadget with the Ryza. And no reason to bluff. We literally know all of his cards. He's going to summon Gadget and set Mirror Force. And we should be able to win, unless we draw Malicious. What we're going to be able to do is Brain Control his Gadget, banish for the 3rd Malicious, spin the Mirror Force, and attack directly with everything. So, assuming we don't draw the 3rd Malicious. Oh, okay, touche. He's going to start setting. Oh yeah, I guess his deck only ran 2 copies of each Gadget, so he's actually out of Gadgets right now. That is an interesting thing to note. Ring. Ring's an interesting one here. So here what we're going to do is spin the Mirror Force one more time by utilizing the Malicious in the graveyard. I guess it's theoretically possible. Yeah, this is the right play, actually. Because this actually plays around if he were to ever draw Brain Control. If I have 2 2400s on the board, he would have to crash them. So we're going to summon Ryza and spin the Mirror Force one more time. This is exactly what the deck does. Basically, it just loops Ryza and Wing Blast. Ryza and Wing Blast. You have a bunch of dead draws, and eventually we go in for game. Attack. So the big concern here is next turn, if I were attacked with a Ryza, he's going to Mirror Force. So the fun is over, kind of. There is a possibility here that I lose, even though I've been in a dominant position. I've established control. It is possible for me to easily lose from this point. So you're going to set a yellow gadget again. His deck did in fact run a Pot of Avarice, so I guess there is some incentive not to, but he has to. Consider. All right, Fearmonger is a pretty decent draw, all things considered. What this is going to let me do is shift the Ryza to defense. Attack. He's probably then going to Mirror Force. I mean, I guess the possibility is to leave these in attack mode, but I don't think that's proper. I could Destiny draw the Fearmonger, but I don't think that's a good idea with the Disc Commander in the graveyard. I think what's likely to happen here is I'm going to try to attack with one of the Ryzas. He's going to Mirror Force, and then he's going to use his Gadget to attack over my defense position Ryza. If he draws a Monarch, what's the worst Monarch that he could draw? I mean, honestly, the Stalos is pretty miserable here, because if he hits a card like Brain Control, I lose out on my ability to win. All right, I think the play here is to put this Ryza to defense mode, go to battle phase, and attack his face down. Now he's going to Mirror Force. I go to main phase 2. And if he Brain Controls here, do I lose? I do lose. So I do, in fact, actually have to set this Fearmonger. Now, the worst case scenario is if he draws Zaborg. So I actually think, well, this is actually not that great then. Now, if he summons Zaborg, I should be okay. Yeah, if he summons Zaborg, I'm actually okay. If he summons Zaborg, I actually win the game. He summons Zaborg, he hits the monster, attacks the face down, I Brain Control it, and then flip Ring. And I have just enough life, a little bit over, actually. So I'm in good shape. I'm in good shape here. Yep, that's fine. So the big question is, did he draw a Monarch? All right, goes to battle phase. Now he's going to attack over the Ryza. The question is, do I want to ring his Gadget? If I were to ring his Gadget, I would present lethal. He's already used his Mirror Force and his Torrential, so he has no board clearers. He only has cards like Sakuratsu Armor and Widespread Ruin to worry about. I guess his own Mirror Force, his own Ring of Destruction. I think it's probably correct to use Ring on this. Though I guess if he draws a card like the Jujitsu, this game's going to go a long time. No, I still think I'm going to Ring Destruction this. It makes it so that he's below the threshold for a Monarch attack. So if he doesn't have a way of killing my Ryza or a Monarch in the following turns, he's in rough shape. All right, I'll start my turn. Draw MST casually. So we could theoretically draw here. So we'll see what happens. But I could run into a ring and we could draw, which would be really unfortunate. I feel like we've put ourselves into a really good position, but let's see what happens. All right, that's the ball game. To attack mode, I guess I'll just flip summon it for the sake of him seeing it, and attack for game. So in terms of the side deck, I'm going to ask him if he wants deciding. But I'm going to side deck in. The best card in this matchup is Pulling the Rug. Pulling the Rug is a fantastic card because it hits not only the Gadgets, but also the Monarchs, so that card is just incredible. I also think Spy is halfway decent against a deck with the Gadgets. But it's kind of hard which ones I want to cut in order to put in the Spies. I could theoretically cut some Card Troopers, but I really like Card Trooper. As you notice, I don't have Mirror Force on my deck. That would be a card that I'd at least consider cutting. At least back in the day, 1-for-1ing is a little rough. So I'm going second. So I'm definitely going to cut this Confiscation. Definitely going to cut Confiscation. I can cut a Brain Control. That's kind of a lot of Brain Controls. So my deck is based loosely on the Dale Bolito variant that topped the Canadian Nationals. You notice I'm not running Cyber Dragon. He did not main deck Cyber Dragon. Wing Blast is a card that wasn't super common during this format, but I think in retrospect it probably should have been used. Jonathan Labonte won a SJC immediately after this format, utilizing a variant of this deck with double Wing Blast. So I think bare minimum Confiscation's going out for Pulling the Rug. I can start by swapping out a Brain Control just because you already have 2 and Snatch Steal. From that point, I actually think I might end up just keeping the Spies in the side deck. I don't really want to side anything else out. Maybe the Card Troopers, honestly. You're kind of going to go into a more traditional variant of a Monarch deck with the D-Hero package with no Card Troopers. As you saw in that previous game, I had to kind of do something that was a little unorthodox of just crashing my Card Trooper by utilizing its effect to only mill 2 cards, which a little bit unusual. So maybe I do side out the Card Troopers. A Gadget-Monarch deck was not the most common thing in the world. So there really isn't a default method of siding. We're going to start with this and see what happens. I think just attacking with the Ryzes and the Staloses will be sufficient. The Spy actually can crash at least with Yellow Gadget too. So we're going to go with this, I think. We'll give it a shot. We'll see what happens. And then maybe I'll side back in the Card Troopers for game 3. It's a good hand. Solid hand. I think I'm actually happy to have Spy in my hand because I'm going to have a normal summon with Stratos anyway, so having a little bit of variety in the options on turn 1 is really nice. Do I want to set a monster or do I want to just summon Stratos? I have Destiny Draw with Reinforcements, which is great. Yep. Green searches red. Yeah, we're relearning. I remember being, what was this, 14 years ago? So I was like 16 years old learning how these worked. I remember green searches red. It's really nice to have Trap Dushoot too. That card is so fantastic. It is worth considering holding Dushoot a little bit in this match, just because you might want to pinpoint a moment where a Monarch is groundbreaking and game breaking, not groundbreaking, match breaking, and then utilize it like that. It's also good to chain to Brain Control. The reason I used it aggressively in game 1 is because I had Mind Crush too. This is a really awesome hand. This is a really classic hand for this deck. I'm going to Rhoda for Stratos, Destiny Draw Malicious, and then I'm going to have a fodder for a Thestalo summon on turn 2. At that point, I think it's actually worthwhile to Dushoot to see what type of hand he's going to have when I utilize this. One thing that's interesting here is I actually think I might want to play MST. The reason I might want to use MST here is if I get hit by pulling the rug, I think my hand gets quite a bit worse, because then he gets to summon another gadget, and if I'm forced to set Spy and he has multiple Monarchs in hand, my Dust Shoot's not really going to save me. Game 2 and 3, we are in fact side decking. I think I need to be more aggressive about pulling the rug. Yeah, it could be Dust Shoot, but my hand's actually a little bit Dust Shoot proof, because sure, he gets it to the Stalos, but my hand's actually still pretty good. So I'm actually going to MST his back row, which is a little aggressive, but I don't want this to be pulling the rug. Shrink, okay, definitely didn't consider Shrink. Shrink was a card that Adam ran in his variant of this deck back. Oh man, did I forget to put Stratos in my deck? That is crazy. All right, we're going to proxy Stratos. I can't believe I forgot to put Stratos in the deck. That is insane. All right, no wonder why I didn't draw it last game. We're going to proxy Stratos. So this is my Stratos. And now we're going to search for a Malicious. And now we will Destiny draw. Now we will attack over for minus 400. I do not want to set Torrential because I want to get a sense of what his hand is before I consider setting the Torrential. He's not going to OTK me with his deck, and I want to know whether or not I need to use the Torrential against something like a Mobius and whatnot. So I'm going to actually pass. This way, there's nothing for him to Ryza if he were to actually have something like Brain Control plus Monarch, and I choose to let him keep the Monarch in hand. So I'm going to set the Dust Shoot and pass here. Flip the Dust Shoot in his draw phase. I'm risking that he has multiple gadgets, but I want to get a good sense of his hand here. All right, so we have MST. He does, in fact, have one of his 3 brains. Bottomless Trap Hole is useful to know. He's got red, Hydro Get-On. That's very important. That's another reason to side out Card Trooper. He actually probably sided those into the deck, as a matter of fact. And then Legendary Jujutsu Master. So the card here that I'm most worried about is probably the Jujutsu Master. I can pretty cleanly deal with everything else. Again, the monster in my field is Stratos. We're proxying it. I forgot to include it in my deck. So that 1800 attack from the Stratos is walled by the Jujutsu Master. Now, granted, I can Stalos, but even then, I don't really want to attack at the Stalos into a Jujutsu Master. So we're going to do the Jujutsu Master. So his hand now is Bottomless Trap Hole, MST, Brain Control, a Gadget, and a Hydro Get-On. He's almost assuredly going to summon a Gadget and then search. No reason really to do much of anything else. His red Gadget is going to search him a copy of yellow Gadget. So I can... It's too bad I drew the Malicious. Obviously, I didn't make a comment on that, but drawing the second Malicious is not ideal. This deck technically does have Pot of Avarice in it. I don't think I forgot that one, too. So it's going to be a while before I potentially get the Malicious back into the deck. We both need to get to 5 monsters, which I'm far from, and then also actually draw the Singleton copy. From my perspective, he's probably just going to set Bottomless Trap Hole, but he could potentially set both. We'll see. Yep. So we're in a game state that can sometimes happen with gadgets, where if I leave my... Again, this is Stratos. If I leave my Stratos on the board and just keep attacking over his gadgets, because his back row is Bottomless Trap Hole as opposed to Sakuratsu Armor or Widespread Ruin, I actually can just whittle down through his gadgets with one single monster if I don't put a monster on the board that has enough attack for him to Bottomless. So I'm really tempted to summon the Stalos here and whittle away that back row and then just continually attack and hope he doesn't draw something like Sakuratsu or force him to eventually use the Sakuratsu Armor on just the Stratos. So I'm doing this basically knowing that this monster is going to be hit by Bottomless Trap Hole. And then I'm going to be into a game state where I keep attacking over with my Stratos. Let's see what we hit. Hopefully not Hydro Get-On. Okay, Brain Control is probably the best one to hit, honestly. So that's not Bottomless Trap Hole, and that's MST that he set. Trying to do something that's unexpected, then this could be game breaking. So yeah, this is awesome. So we know what he has. He has MST set Yeah, perfect. Now attack directly for 1800. He's got Gadget, Hydro-Geddon, MST set with Bottomless in hand still. So now we're in a pretty good position. I could set this Torrential Tribute, but we know that's MST, so there's honestly no reason to do it whatsoever. I could draw a dead card that makes more sense for me to set, so I'm actually going to hold back and I'm going to just end my turn. I could also draw something like, I don't run Mobius, but I could draw a card that pops a back row, like potentially my own Heavy Storm. I already used MST, but I could draw a Heavy Storm for his MST, and that point would actually open up my Torrential Tribute. So no reason to set the Torrential. If you know your opponent has an MST like that, you don't gain anything from setting a card like Torrential. Just hold it. Yep. So he searches out his green gadget. So now his hand is green gadget. He has Bottomless in hand. He has set MST, and he has a Hydro-Geddon. So we've done a really good job playing around his Hydro-Geddon by siding out the card trooper. That was kind of unintended, but it's ended up working out. So here's the question. Do I risk him drawing a card like Mirror Force or Torrential Tribute? He's only had one fresh draw. Let's sit here and kind of weigh the options. Currently, if I were to just attack, again, I have Stratos on the board, so that's 600 over the 12, and then the 2400 off of the Stalos is 3000, so it drops him to 1700. By summoning the Mystic Tomato, that does not lower the clock by a turn or anything. The 1400 would still leave him at 300. Meaning, I'm not sure it's worth summoning the Tomato here and risking losing a game where I think I'm actually in really commanding position. Putting the Mystic Tomato also opens me up to his Hydro-Geddon. Same would be true if I summon something like Fearmonger, both of those pseudo-floaters. And he's in a position here where if he just has MST and Bottomless set, the cards that we know, I can attack here, deal the 3000, and then on the following turn he loses. If he sets a gadget, I just attack over it with Stratos, and then directly with the Stalos. So it's really the same quantity of turns that he has to draw a card. So I don't think I need to make an unnecessary risk by summoning another monster that would either allow him to have drawn a MST, or rather Torrential or a Mirror Force. I'd much rather him be forced to use his own Mirror Force, or his own Torrential next turn on his own normal summon. So we're just going to attack. This deals 3000 total, assuming that this is in fact Bottomless, and he has no responses to this. I'm attacked directly again. This is a Stratos. I'm practicing a Stratos. I accidentally left Stratos out of my deck. Same deal, no point in setting Torrential Tribute. Torrential Tribute would just be run into by this MST. There's no benefit in doing that whatsoever. You know, what if the cards he drew are Brain Control and Ryza or something? It's going to put me in an awkward position. So leave the Torrential set in hand. Yep, and that would be the game.